Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Mastering Automation in Modern Warehouses, Expert Insights to Boost Efficiency and Cut Costs. My name is Amanda Armendariz. I am the editor of Parcel Media, and we at Parcel would like to thank Regal Rexnord for making this webinar completely complimentary for our audience. Our speaker today is Don Overberg, Global Strategic Account Manager for Regal Rexnord, and with that, I am going to hand it off to him.
Thank you, Amanda. And so, as Amanda said, this webinar is entitled Mastering Automation Warehouses. And my name is Don Overberg. I'm the Global Business Development Manager focused on the mod sort and subsystems for Regal Rexnord's Automation and Solutions Group. And I've been in interlogistics by way of a background. I've been in the interlogistics space for the better part of 30 years with 3 different companies, primarily dealing with business development, but also sourcing and marketing, finance, operations. Most of my time has been working with end users on what I would call frontline automation. And so with that, I kind of want to walk through this agenda. Today, we're going to talk about shifting from manual labor to automation. What's going on in the automation space? What's going on in the warehouse distribution space right now? Some of the current industry trends, what types of automation technology are being adopted, and what are the benefits of that automation? Why would an end user want to implement automation, or why would they maybe not want to implement automation? Integrating automation, we're going to show some real world examples of some ROI models that we went through with some of our customers. And then in conclusion, a look at the future of modern warehouses, where we think it's going to look in the near future with automation being adopted into this space. And so with that, I want to spend the first part of this talking about basically why companies are moving to automation, what's driving that. So in my mind, automation is being adopted into warehouse distribution centers and in the e-commerce and fulfillment space, really for 2 reasons. Either it's by desire, there's a specific need that the customers want to look at automation to maybe figure out how to be more efficient or be more productive with a specific task, or it's being employed by need, meaning there's a labor shortage and they're forced into automation because they have the manpower necessarily to do the tasks they were doing post-pandemic COVID. So when COVID hit, obviously the labor shortages hit. And so the supply of labor is much lower and the cost of that labor is much higher. So with automation, especially around repetitive tasks, where robots or certain automation pieces of equipment can mimic and handle that task in a repetitive format. That's another reason why companies are moving to automation. And then there's a safety component, because anytime you have a workforce or man labor around rotating mechanical parts or moving equipment, it becomes more of a safety issue. So to adopt equipment that can handle the same type of repetitive task that was being employed by manpower makes it a safer environment for these warehouses. With that, I kind of classified automation in my mind, really breaking it down between digital automation and what I would call process or mechanical automation. So the digital automation space is really the warehouse management systems and the transportation management systems on the outbound side. It's AI, it's Internet of Things, it's machine learning, it's all of the different types of digital platforms that are out there to incorporate in the warehouse space. And then on the process automation side, I would call that more on the mechanical or the equipment side, with AMRs and AGVs and robotics and ASRS systems being employed, high-speed conveyors and sorters and mergers and different types of equipment on the conveying side as well, all being employed today in warehouses to try to improve on efficiency and to bring automation into that platform. So what are some of the current industry trends? And some of these trends have been there for a while, right? It's not necessarily just today. There has been a push to move quicker and higher speeds in modern warehouses for some time. Customers want to move faster. The faster they can get product from the inbound side to the outbound side is obviously what saves them money. So we are constantly, as most of our colleagues are getting pushed, can you move faster? Can you go another 50 feet per minute? Can you go another 100 feet per minute? Because that desire is part of the industry trends that we're seeing today with the speed component. And then along with that, which is just as important, is the efficiency component. Not only do they want to move faster, but they want to do it in higher efficient platforms, because nobody wants to handle product more than once. So if you can be efficient, handle the product, whether it's proper labeling or diverting to the right location to try to eliminate missorts, anything that causes companies to handle product more than once and to recert product costs them money. So the push is obviously the trend. One of the trends is faster and definitely more efficient. And then finally, it's just filling in the gap where they were able to use labor at one point in time, and now there's a push to move that to adopt the automation technology. That's what we're seeing in the warehouses today. So along with that, it's what types of automation technology, what's coming into the market, what's been coming into the market. And first on the digital side with AI and robotics, I think it's important first when we talk about these to just kind of define what are we talking about? Like, what is AI? And I just think in the simplest form, AI is just a machine that can mimic human intelligence. It's trying to think and process like a human does, right? And there are subsets of AI, or like a branch of AI would be like machine learning. You hear that term a lot on the digital side. That's essentially around the robotics. So it's like a robot to perform a specific task and then use the algorithms to learn from the data that it's getting to get better over time. So how can I improve the process? How can I improve the function that I'm doing today, that repetitive function, to make sure that I'm even more accurate? Another term that we hear a lot on the digital side is IoT, or Internet of Things. Really collecting data through like sensors and cameras, and then transmitting that data to the cloud for analysis and processing. So an example of that would be like Tesla. Tesla does that when they're driving down the road, collecting data and processing that data. An example of like AI could be a simple example, could be like Siri or Alexa, that when they get a question, they're processing, but when they get a question they don't understand, that they file that and they're trying to figure out, how to answer that question for the next time. So that's kind of a brief and maybe a benign layout of AI. And then we move into, other types of automation, which we talked about before, mechanical, or what I'd call advanced systems, which is, the homegrown or the market WMS systems, how to integrate to those WMS systems. There's a push for capacity, ASRS systems, automated storage and retrieval systems, where you can increase capacity by going vertical and not just having to add to the end of the building. And we're seeing a lot of push into the ASRS platform, particularly for those companies that need to store product, for a couple of days. Maybe they're waiting on an ASN or some information coming from their outbound truck, and they're holding product until they get that information. To do it and to be able to do that in an automated platform is very beneficial, right? To do that. There's also advanced conveying subsystems. We're going to talk about some mini subsystems and ways to go into automation on a partial scale, as opposed to maybe going full-fledged into automation. And then there's products that are becoming more automated. An example would be like energy efficient gear motors, the i5 permanent magnet motors, the most efficient motor out there in the market. And that being paired with the VFD collects data and circles data back into the PLC where you could then read off that data and make some decisions. So those are all key components of the types of automation technology that we're seeing today, as well as fine cameras and sensors and the ability to be accurate and to pick up, in the vision systems, exactly what they're supposed to at the exact time that they're supposed to. Some of the benefits that we see in automation technologies, obviously, as we spoke about, it's the increased productivity and efficiency, the ability to move quicker and at a higher efficient rate is a definite cost savings for end users. They want scalable product and the scalable impact of that. They want a better customer experience and enhanced consumer demand in the fulfillment side. And then many companies are targeting sustainability goals. It's a big target for a lot of company initiatives, particularly by 2030, 2035, some by 2040. How do they meet their sustainability goals, and how does interlogistics and automation play a role in that? So many companies are looking for automated systems that really streamline logistics and reduce transportation and fuel costs. So you use real-time data analytics to enhance inventory management by minimizing excess stock and reducing the footprint that is caused by overproducing and waste. So if you can do that and lower that footprint, then you can obviously improve and meet the sustainability goals for these corporate initiatives, which is good for all of us. So why are some companies deciding to make the switch and go into automation on a grander scale? And I think there's a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a really strong return on the ROI, particularly the long-term consideration. So when you look at the ROI, maybe it's there in 8 months, maybe it's there in 12 months, maybe it's there in 16 months, but over a long term, typically you're going to get that ROI because the CapEx side of automation or the OpEx side can be, pricey. And when we talked about in the agenda, why do some companies decide not to move into automation? I think a lot of that really circles around the initial cost of the CapEx and the technology. But the return, automation is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's operating. And so you're realizing that benefit, that ROI benefit from day one in terms of the payback on implementing the automation or the technology. Then there's specific custom solutions where automation can be developed to tailor specific to what the customer needs and then focus around that application. And maybe that's not full-fledged automation in terms of the entire building, but it is focused maybe on the inbound side or maybe on the outbound side or maybe just on how they divert or convey or switch. And so you can develop specific custom solutions where you can realize that ROI right from the beginning. And then just from an operations perspective, to be able to look and see what operations make sense. Not every operation makes sense necessarily to automate, but where you can and should automate is part of the process of why to implement automation. And so where do you begin? Where do companies begin? What process should they follow in order to decide whether they want to go down this path of automation? And on the sales side, on the business development side, we all use sales scales or closure scales or whatever they defined in their business entities to try to define how to go and adopt a process. But it always starts with discovery. And so if I'm an end user or I'm a warehouse and I'm trying to define whether I want to go ahead and start with automation or not, I think there's a couple things that need to happen. First of all, you need to understand the supplier base's products. From the point of view of the end user, you're looking at what custom solutions do they have, what's their value prop, how do they improve your speed, how can you prioritize applications that are based on your customer needs, where you can adopt the implementation in your warehouse to better serve your customers. And so that's a process of communication that takes place between the end user and the supplier. It's very important that the end user understands what the technical capabilities are of each provider. But also, it's just as important that they communicate to the supplier what is the material that's going to be handled, what speed, what are you trying to do, what's the end game. And if the suppliers understand that, then it definitely helps to customize a solution specific to that end user's needs, particularly around the digital automation as well, which would be integrating with existing WMS systems that customers may have. It's very important that the supplier base understands those WMS systems and the ability to integrate with those. And then just to explore the technologies that are out there. Is AI and the robotics, is that a potential for each customer that is adopting automation? What is an ASRS system? Why would they need an ASRS system? How do they work? Are they pallet-based? Are they tote-based? Are they mini-load systems? There's all kinds of products out there in the automation space. But what's happened is many customers, ASRS systems have been around for quite a while, mostly in Europe, because they had capacity constraints and space constraints. Couldn't just expand on the buildings. The availability to do that was pretty minimal in Europe. Now in North America, some of the same things are happening, and companies are realizing that their capacity to grow is actually vertical. And so the ASRS systems solve that problem and can help companies to adopt and automate from inbound to outbound by employing an ASRS system in the vertical space, just as an example. So we get the question a lot, can you integrate automation gradually? Does it have to come into play where the entire warehouse has to be fully automated? And the answer is there are all kinds of subsystems out there that can be integrated in basically what I would call frontline or first step into automation, where you can go full automation and you'll get that benefit right from the beginning because you're going to realize the benefit 24/7, or you can start in a specific application, like an unload application, perhaps where you're unloading on the inbound side. You need to divert off into either carts or gaylords or chutes or pallets. And you can employ different types of automation technology to do that. There's different subsystems out there. There's robotic picking and robotic placing on the pallets, even to rainbow pallets now or mixed product. The ability is out there now. If you do a little research on the supplier base, it's out there that can employ that type of technology. You can actually focus on a specific application and adopt automation on a gradual or a partial basis. So we just took a look at this, just one of our customers that we did, Motion Industries. They were experiencing 100+ jams a day. Their people were being sent to clear these jams. Each time they would go clear a jam, it would cost about $15 or so, manpower, labor hours, which was about $1,500 daily. And so their solution was to replace the pneumatic arm with a divert system, the mud sort system that enabled them to kind of eliminate the problem that they were having with jams. So just on a small scale, actually utilizing some automation technology. And then we've had somewhere like distribution warehouses, since we're in that space. One particular customer, 80 hours a week, they were manually grabbing and pulling totes at a labor rate of $21 plus. they automated and realized a savings of around $90,000 annually in labor cost, just to divert the installation. So that was really good for them. There's all kinds of different types of products out there that will yield some very favorable ROIs. So I recommend looking into each one of these when you go to look at automation. Get with your customers. Most customers or most suppliers have ROI models or ROI calculators specific to automation where they can calculate and work with the customers to deliver that bottom line savings. And just real quick, kind of a last look at what's the future of automation look like? What does the future of the warehouses look like? And where would they adopt automation? And there is a 2024 MHI, Material Handling Industry, Annual Industry Report that talks about where automation is going to be, where it's going to show up in future warehouses, and what's the mix? How's that going to look? And so they did a survey, and it looks like, AI, for example, 85% the predicted adoption of this technology within 5 years. The Internet of Things, the same. Just sensors, 83%, robotics and automation, 83%. So customers are looking, and the future is looking bright for automation. It's not going to go away. It's going to continue to grow and move forward. And I think in the next 5 years, it's going to be looking very different than it does today. And so the continuing transfer from manual labor to automation is a key component. And then the increase on sortation speeds, the increased demand on accuracy is also forcing a lot of the higher end automation technology into this space. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of go over on this webinar. I think there's a little bit of time for some questions.
Yes, there is. So let's just jump in. The first one is, in the discovery process, what are some best practices or questions to ask to better evaluate the available options for my facility?
That's a great question, Amanda. I'd say from I'm going to take this from the warehouse point of view, the warehouse user's point of view. And we talked about this a little bit before, but I think it's communication. It comes down to communication of all the necessary components of the products that you're working with and that you're handling. So what is the size, the weight, the type of the product? But I think it's just as important for you to understand what your supplier's capabilities are, particularly on how they can accommodate your current needs and help you with future growth. And those are the key components, I think, when you start down that process of how to get in and how to talk to your customers and talk to your suppliers about adopting automation. It's just about being flexible, and can your suppliers be flexible and grow with you? Do they have modular systems or flexible systems that today you may want, to do a certain task, but 3 to 5 years down the road look different, and you want to make sure you're talking to your suppliers and they understand that it isn't just for today. You want them to look at what the automation is going to look like 3 to 5 years down the road. It's very important so that you can grow into that as you grow with your business.
Thank you. The next question is, in your experience, what types of automation technology do businesses you've worked with typically use to begin integrating automation in their warehouses?
Okay, so good. Yeah, so we're on the smaller subsystem side. So we are typically looking at specific applications. You're right. We're not, our particular automation suite is not full, warehouse automation. It's directed towards specific applications. So one application is really on the unload side when customers are looking, maybe they have, manual folks inside the back of a truck that are loading boxes onto a conveyor, and then they have to sort off those. They have to induct them into their warehouse management system and then try to get it to the outbound side. That's where we come in on the front side of that, where product is coming off the truck. We take it then and we read the labels, or we read direct wherever the product needs to go, wherever it needs to divert to. And then components of automation can be added on depending on what the customer needs are. So, for example, you can unload, you could bring it in, scan the labels, divert it to a specific location. Then, if you want to adopt a robot, that component to actually pick the product and place it on a pallet, that can be done, or it can be diverted directly into a cart or a gaylord. An AGV can then be adopted to pick it up and take it to an ASRS system or take it to the outbound side. So we get involved in all of those kinds of functions in order to provide the customer with a specific application where maybe our type of automation works for them. So thank you.
Sounds good. Our last question is, how does the implementation process of automation technology vary between larger distribution centers and smaller warehouses?
Again, a great question. So I think it goes back to what we've been talking about. You know, the larger distribution centers, their goal is to get the product in and get it out at the highest speed that they can. So you typically see with the larger distribution centers much more high-speed platforms, either shoe sorters, cross-belt sorters, things that are moving very quickly to try to move the product through the system as fast as they possibly can. In the smaller distribution centers, they also could adopt a lot of that type of technology, but they also may be looking for maybe just a recirc line or some sort of auto bagger or something that's maybe more specific, where automation can be employed, but it doesn't necessarily impact the entire distribution center. So I think you see more specific types of technology and automation around a specific task in the smaller distribution centers than perhaps in the larger distribution centers that would adopt more of a full suite of automation. And I hope that makes sense.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. As we wrap up today, I think we have one more slide with some QR codes that our attendees can scan if they would like to learn more. So there we go. So yeah, you can scan the code on the left to schedule a meeting with Don, or you can scan the code on the right to view the ModSort website, or of course you can do both. So with that, I would like to thank Don for a wonderful presentation. Thanks again to Regal Rexnord for sponsoring this webinar. And thank you to all of you for attending. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.